Hello everyone, back to today's second video. You're going to have a look at the weather next week to 10 days. In today's second video, this will take us into the second half of September, of course, and we'll also have a look at CFS V2 for the next month, which is going to take us into the early part of October. But we'll begin by having a look at what's happening in the tropical Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Before we get on with that, though, just to say that earlier on today, the first video at Gazweather is looked at Storm Aileen. We're going to have our first named storm of the autumn-winter season tonight and tomorrow. It's going to bring a real blow to some of us tonight. And we can expect winds gusting up to 75 miles per hour, perhaps, in some parts of the country. Let you have a look at that video, see what's going to be happening. You can find it here on the homepage. Just scroll down a little bit and it's above the pollen count. So we'll get on with today's second video, beginning with the situation in the tropics. So this was Category 5 Hurricane Irma. It is now a post-tropical cyclone and it's sitting across Georgia and Alabama, producing still copious amounts of rain, lots of very wet weather there, but the winds are much lighter, and this feature is now rapidly decaying. It is rapidly dying a death, and we won't have to worry about Irma very much longer. In the Atlantic, we've still got Category 1, formerly Category 5, Hurricane Jose. Or was it Category 4? I forget now. But we've still got the Hurricane Jose in the tropical Atlantic anyway. That's not going anywhere fast. And then we've got this area over here in the eastern part of the tropical Atlantic. That's just a disturbance area at the moment. It's not a storm. It certainly isn't a hurricane, but it needs watching. It's an area of thunderstorms that might, because it's over the warm waters of the tropical Atlantic Ocean, it might develop into either a storm or possibly a cyclone or a hurricane in the days ahead. So we need to keep an eye on that. The real interest now, I suppose, is with Jose. So this is the forecast from the National Hurricane Center for Jose. Its current position is just here. It should be weakening down to a tropical storm in the next couple of days, but by Thursday it's back up to a Category 1 hurricane again. You notice it's just going round in circles, really, not really doing anything much. But by the time you get through to the weekend, it does start to push northwards and eastwards, then getting very close to these eastern Caribbean islands. So something like the Bahamas might get some very wet and stormy weather from Jose, I should say, at the weekend. Now, this is the forecast position by Sunday, so it's still out in the ocean. We have to watch whether this is going to get close to the eastern seaboard of the States. Some models are trying to move this up towards the east coast of America, but it's very uncertain whether it's going to do that. It may be that it just stays out in the sort of Atlantic Ocean and never gets to the eastern seaboard of America. But it does need keeping an eye on. More of a nuisance at the moment than anything. It would be better if this storm would just sort of die and go away. But it's not going anywhere fast, and certainly up to Sunday, it is still going to be an active region. Over in the Pacific, there's 3 areas of interest there as well. We've got 15E, which is a tropical depression. Then we've also got these disturbance areas just here. This one has a 40 to 60% chance, this orange X, 40 to 60% chance of becoming some sort of tropical storm in the next couple of days. So the tropics are still active, although slightly quieter perhaps than we've had for a week or two, although with Jose still meandering its way around, I'd say still pretty active really in the tropical Atlantic and Pacific Oceans at the moment. We'll keep an eye on what's going to be happening there. Right, GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for UK for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Going to be cooler than average the rest of the week and into the weekend. So we continue quite a cool run of weather into the third week of September, which is this period just here. We've got a warming trend. We are lifting the temperature up. However, there's a lot of scatter in with that. There are several members of the GFS ensembles that are staying quite cool in this period. Several that are going quite warm. So I don't think even now it's really definitive as to quite what happens in this third week of September. And overall, I would say that we have probably stepped back a little bit from yesterday in terms of turning things warmer and drier for the second week of September. So yesterday we did the video and we said probably we are going to get a warmer and drier spell through the third week of September. But I think we took a couple of steps back from that actually today. Still a lot of chopping and changing going on for this second half of September. The precipitation spikes, so we've got quite a bit of wet weather coming up tonight and tomorrow morning associated with Aileen, and then it's showery really as we go through the rest of the week and into weekend. And then next week, this period where we might get a warmer, drier interlude. Actually, there's a lot of precipitation spikes in that period as well. So you certainly want to look at that and say we're in for a definitively dry spell of weather going into the second half of September. It does look a little bit unsettled. As I say, we have perhaps taken a couple of steps back from yesterday in terms of turning things warmer and drier through the third week of the month. Temperature anomalies going from the 12th to 20th of September are coming out cooler than average, not just for the UK, but for many central western parts of Europe. The warmth, the heat is in the east and the southeast of Europe, where it has been through most of September so far. Precipitation anomalies for the next week from the 12th to 20th of September. Close to average, a little bit on the drier and average side, perhaps especially so out in the west. This is how the GFS is looking for Friday, then, bringing down this very cool and showery northerly wind. And that stays with us into the weekend. The weekend will start on a very cool and showery note. This is the uncertain period here, I think, around Sunday, Monday, how much of this ridge we start to build up from the Azores High. The Azores High is actually centering itself around sort of Spain and Portugal. It's trying to send its ridge northwards, but you can see there's still a lot of low pressure around in the Atlantic, also to the north of the country. So this is the question mark period around Monday 18th, Tuesday 19th. If we really hook this Azores High up and set up a proper ridge across the country, then we might go in quite a prolonged settled spell of weather. And that's what this very latest run of the GFS does, actually. We now do still have some areas of low pressure to the far northwest of Scotland to the middle part of next week. But for England and Wales, we are close to this ridge from the Azores High, but centering around France. And then high pressure just continues through the rest of next week. This is to Friday, 22nd of September, when we are bringing by then the remains of Hurricane Jose into the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. It's finally starting to move and do something. As we go beyond that into, we've gone beyond day 10 now, but we go to Saturday 23rd of September, you see high pressure is still dominating, still bringing a lot of dry and fine weather. So this particular run, this very latest run of a GFS 6 o'clock run, does actually produce this dry spell of weather next week. However, the ECM looks very different. So this is the ECM for Saturday. We've got this northerly wind bringing cool, showery conditions. That continues into Sunday as well. And then early next week, we tried to get this ridge up from the Azores, but you notice it all looks rather flimsy. Certainly not a definitive ridge building here from the Azores High through next week. So that as we go to the second half of next week, actually it turns very unsettled again with the ECM. This is Thursday 21st of September, and it's actually day 10, Friday 22nd, when low pressure is well and truly in control here. So very different by day 10 between the GFS and the ECM. Now I have to say about the midnight run, the run before this GFS run I just showed you, the midnight GFS was also very unsettled. So I thought probably we are moving back towards unsettled weather for next week after maybe a couple of days of drier weather. Then the 6 o'clock run comes along, what I just showed you, and that produces an extended spell of high pressure. So still lots and lots of chopping and changing in terms of next week's weather. But I think we are probably taking a couple of steps back today in setting up a spell of dry and warm weather. Despite that 6 o'clock run of the GFS, I have a feeling we are probably going to be quite unsettled in the end next week. We'll wait and see how that develops. CFS V2 finally for the next month. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period taking us from this week, the 12th, to the 18th of September, and it looks unsettled with low pressure but average height centering around into the east of the UK, above average heights up to the north, and we're pulling the wind in like that. So cool and unsettled for the week ahead. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 19th, 25th of September. It's when we had some hints, particularly yesterday, of something a bit drier and warmer coming up. But this still looks quite unsettled, really. I think we're taking trough of low pressure through the UK and into Central Europe. The Azores high is there to the west of Portugal, but it does look a bit flimsy, and we're on the cool side of the jet still there, doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. That's still quite unsettled for week 2. Then week 3, we take the ridging up to the north. So this is the 26th of September through to 2nd of October. Above average heights up over Scandinavia, and also stretched out to the north of Scotland and going to the south of Greenland. We're bringing in easterly winds there with that. Could be quite a bit drier, but it may be rather cool, actually, with the wind coming in from the east. And then we go through to week 4. This is all looking rather strange as we get through the start of October, I must say. This goes from the 3rd to the 9th of October, where we've got a northern blocking feature. We have northern blocking in week 3 as well. So weeks 3 and 4 have northern blocking, but at this point it's retrogressing over towards Greenland, which means we're going with the flow from east to west. So retrogression is east to west as opposed to zonal, which is west to east. Zonal is the normal flow. For our part of the world, pressure normally moves west to east, but when pressure goes from east to west, that's called retrogression. So the CFS is hinting for week 4, the 3rd to the 9th of October, of retrogression of the ridge, taking it to Greenland, and then, as often happens, we set up a trough underneath it. So that could be very cool and wet. This trough could be bringing a lot of rain, especially so for the south, and with the wind coming in from an east-northeasterly, possibly even slightly northerly direction, that could be very cool start to October and very unsettled weather as well. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead are coming out cooler than average. We'll rattle through these very quickly. Week 2, temperature anomalies, they are recovering a little bit, but still more or less on the cooler side, especially so for the south. Week 3, temperature anomalies, again close to average, a little bit cooler in the south. And then week 4, nearly all places coming out cooler than average. So quite a cool month coming up, whilst it does moderate a little bit for the end of September. By the time you get through to the start of October, as that northern blocking gets going, then the temperatures begin to fall again. Precipitation anomalies in week ahead look quite a bit wetter than average, closer to average for week 2, but still a bit on the wet side for the north. Week 3 is close to average, but we're losing the precipitation signal now. And then week 4, again, that's coming out close to average, but the way the trough and the ridge are aligned, or I should say the northern blocking and then the low pressure underneath it, I think that could be a very wet start to October, probably with some quite dismal temperatures as well. That looks pretty strange, I have to say, what the model is doing there for October. But if it's right, then we are certainly seeing signs of quite a cooler autumn than we've had for a fair old while. I think you have to go back to 2012, the last time we had a cooler than average autumn. For the last time we had a notably cold autumn, and we aren't at a notably cold autumn by any means yet, but the last time we had a notably cold autumn was actually years and years ago, back in 1993. So, as I say, we're not at that yet, but if we was to start getting northern blocking appearing in October, then we would be potentially looking at some very wet weather and maybe even some early frost as well. But that's all very, very speculative. And as I say, with this longer range stuff, it's very much impacted by what's happening in the tropical Atlantic with these storms and hurricanes. And that is it's a really uncertain time. So I'd just take that, what you see in CFS V2 for next month, with a large dose of salt for now. Coming back to more reliable time frames, so we've got cool showery conditions through the rest of the week and into the weekend. I mean, a big question mark over next week. Will we get that ridge up from the Azores and get something warmer and drier going next week? Or will we just get a couple of days of drier weather before we go back to unsettled stuff? We'll probably know more tomorrow and Thursday. Right, that's all for now. Don't forget to check out latest on Storm Aileen. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.